A common clinical condition is fecal incontinence, and it's not often talked about. We're going to talk today about what it is, what can make it happen, and some things you can do about it.
Well, I think the first thing to understand with this is it's pretty common. And don't be embarrassed about something that happens of that nature. That's pretty common. I think the best thing you can do is, if you have that problem, is go searching for answers and seek clinicians' help to solve the problem, because it can be embarrassing and inconvenient, humiliating, the whole thing that goes down that pathway. So, we don't need to push shame into this at all. We need to talk about it straight on. And I thought that was very appropriate kind of a lead in there. But it's really when we cannot control our bowels, and you're out there and the urgency is right then. You got to go, and you don't make it, and you end up not making it to the bathroom in time. And again, that creates a whole load of problems depending on where you are and who you're around and all of that.
So some of the things that can contribute to fecal incontinence, number one, is what holds the stool inside the body is this thing called the anal or rectal sphincter.
Mm-hmm.
And if that gets weak or gets traumatized or injured for any reason, there can be some leakage or some seepage of stool. A chronic infection. Let's say you travel to Europe and you come home and you've got this thing called fecal incontinence. You may have picked up a traveler's diarrhea, which is an infection that needs to be diagnosed and treated. You might have pancreatic insufficiency. So people who don't make enough pancreatic enzymes, they will have high elastase in a stool test. And these are people that need pretty significant amounts of pancreatic enzyme support. They can have fecal incontinence. There are other things that can injure the nervous system of the bowel. Chronic constipation through time can do that. Any other bowel surgeries can injure the nervous system of the bowel. The bowel has its own nervous system. It's called the enteric nervous system. So that can be a cause of it. It could even be the fact that somebody's taking too much of certain supplements. We have found that things like vitamin C, high dose vitamin C, can have a laxation component to it, or a component of fecal incontinence. And magnesium is another one that is at a high likelihood of causing that problem. Magnesium, not only does it help bowel motility, it is also a muscle relaxer. So if the muscles of the pelvic floor are weak to begin with, and then we're taking magnesium, we might have two problems. We might need to quit the magnesium, and we might need to do some pelvic floor therapy. So there are multiple things that we can do to help remedy this thing called fecal incontinence.
Yeah, and I think too, maybe other things that I just thought of that would be related to that is some of these polyols, like the xylitol, erythritol.
Absolutely.
Those things are common sweeteners. There are a lot of people out here that are highly sensitive to those things, and it can create this. I mean,
mucousy stool.
You got to go now. I think coffee is one that people don't think about too much. You have too much coffee too fast, and you've got to go right now. You mentioned like the injuries back there, and one of the most common ones is like hemorrhoids. It can really inflame that area back there.
Or if they've been removed.
That's right. And so it becomes this problem, and as the stool is moving sort of north to south,
top to bottom,
it's supposed to be a process of separating what we keep with what is waste. And it's a whole intricate process in the body, including the enteric nervous system, including our digestive enzymes. So it's a whole lot of things that can contribute to the cause. But the worst thing to do in a situation like that is look for one thing that causes everything. And if you look for one thing that causes everything, it's going to set ourselves up for failure, because you mentioned a whole litany of things that could be a contributor to this process.
I've had multiple patients that end up with fecal incontinence, and they have what's called collagenous colitis.
There you go.
And the collagenous colitis can be caused by many, many things, one of which is alcohol.
Yeah.
So an overconsumption of alcohol can kind of irritate the lining of the colon and create kind of a mucus mucousy type of discharge from the rectum.
Well, and you also got the prolapsing, that can occur there. Believe it or not, as muscles get weak over time, ladies have had multiple babies and things like that. We've seen that before too, where you got this prolapsing effect where it doesn't, that little sphincter doesn't hold anymore. And you got to think about exercises you talked about to remedy that as well.
Another thing that can help to remedy it is hormone balance.
Yep.
Sometimes if hormones get really, really low, the sphincters lose their tone. So low hormones may contribute to lack of sphincter control.
Yeah, and we deal with this a lot. You don't necessarily talk about it all the time, but whether it be urinary incontinence or fecal incontinence, it's not that atypical, is it? It's pretty common.
It's pretty common. In fact, I have sent a lot of patients for physical therapy. There is pelvic floor physical therapy where a trained professional will work the muscles of the perineum around all of the vital organs to improve, their tone. There can be trigger points in those areas that are causing the problem. There might need to be muscles that need to be strengthened, and that particular therapist can guide somebody in the exercises that they need to do. And perhaps females and males may need to do Kegels. For females, there's even something called Kegel weights.
Wow. So there's a whole bunch, more than you probably ever want to know about fecal incontinence. But bottom line is, it's very common. So if that's something that you're dealing with, don't do nothing about it. Don't be totally embarrassed with it. Get some help and let's get it fixed. You want to reach out to us, we can give you some information like this. Like we've dealt with this a lot. You can. Sherwood.tv. There's a whole bunch of information out there for you. You can give us a call at the clinic as well. And we want to see you healthy and whole and not let these things that can create embarrassment be a common thing in your life.
Let's get real. Most emergency food is just as bad for you as any other choice in the standard American diet. And that's just sad.
We don't just need food, we need highly nutritional food.
We don't just want to survive food shortages, we are meant to thrive in adversity.
Complete your daily nutrition and have shelf-stable Kingdom Fuel as a cornerstone of your food supply.
Don't sacrifice your health or your taste buds.
Stock up on Kingdom Fuel now.
And when you navigate through these economies with people, here's what happens. We want to hold their hand through it, let them know when it's time to buy, sell, reallocate, get out of Dodge. Because a lot of times when you're struck with fear does two things. Number one, it can paralyze and people just put their head in the sand and say, I'm just going to forget about it and hopefully it gets better. Or it causes you to make a wrong decision. And this is why we are here, is to help people navigate through the political quagmire nonsense that's going on, the economic malaise and the absolute collapse that we're seeing. And when our freedoms are eroding, our political freedoms, our economic freedoms, our personal freedoms, our religious freedoms, our health freedoms, they're all tied together. But you know what doesn't need to erode with that? Our finances.
KirkElliottPhD.com/Sherwood.